Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back to another live stream. We are going to sit down and talk about the latest Everton transfer news and rumours today. We haven't done one of these live streams in quite some time, and that's largely due to the fact that there hasn't been an awful lot of news over the last couple of weeks or so. Obviously, we signed Neal Maupay from Brighton last Friday, and we sat down and we spoke a little bit briefly about Neal Maupay in the announcement video that we did. But other than the Maupay deal, you know, there's been rumours, there's been murmurs, there's been a constant sort of ongoing transfer saga surrounding Idrissa Gueye, but there hasn't really been an awful lot that has been going on. And as typical Everton, really, in typical Everton fashion, we've gone from not an awful lot going on to everything going on in the space of, 12 hours, 15 hours or so. It does seem like Everton finally have had a breakthrough in the negotiations with PSG to bring back midfielder Idrissa Gueye. As I said, this saga has been dragging on for far too long now. I think it's been something like 35 days, 37 days, something like that, since there was initial contact between the both clubs. And this was getting to a point where it was really starting to frustrate me. Obviously, these negotiations started before the Premier League season had begun. The Premier League season has now begun. We were 3-4 games into it, still not picked up a victory. And, we were still hearing it on one hand that Idrissa Gueye had agreed the deal to come to Everton, and on another hand, in the same day, we were hearing reports that Idrissa Gueye's move to Everton had fallen through. So, it was really starting to frustrate me, and I think I got to a point, towards the back end of last week where I said, listen, if we can't get it done over the next couple of days or so, then walk away from it and move on and go and look at bringing in another target, because at the end of the day, we need another midfielder, we need more cover in that area, and we can't afford to be, for lack of a better phrase, pissing about with PSG for another week or so on top of the 4 or 5 weeks that we've already done it for, given the transfer window ends, this Thursday. However, we have had a breakthrough over the last 24 hours or so. It seems like an agreement has been made between the both clubs. Idrissa Gueye is currently in Liverpool. He flew in last night whilst Everton were playing Leeds at Ellen Road. He's had his medical today at Finch Farm, and according to a number of really reliable sources, including Fabrizio Romano, Everton are set to sign Idrissa Gueye and James Garner, who we'll talk about in a moment. Here we go, confirmed contracts finally being exchanged with PSG, and James Garner will cost around £15 million with add-ons included, and apparently Man United will have a buyback clause on that deal. However, there's a couple of conflicting rumours surrounding the James Garner situation. But as I said, we'll talk about that one a little bit later on in the live stream. It was all broken through yesterday, as I said, during that game between Leeds and Everton, and Idrissa Gueye was straight on a flight. David Ornstein said late last night, mid-afternoon yesterday, Idrissa Gueye flying to the UK tonight to complete his proposed permanent move from PSG to Everton. Medical tomorrow, and if all okay, the 32-year-old Senegal midfielder will sign a 2-year deal with an option for a third for a nominal fee. Abdallah Bloomer, who is a journalist and a reporter in France, did report that Everton will be paying PSG less than €5 million for Idrissa Gueye, and that come after a couple of rumours throughout the day yesterday stating that Everton will be paying around €10 million for Idrissa Gueye. So conflicting rumours there. It seems like there will be a fee, which again, I can't lie, I'm not particularly surprised by, given the fact, obviously, that this has been going on, this saga has been going on for a criminally long time, and it was quite clear that PSG were wanting some form of monetary gain from this. So it isn't particularly surprising that a fee has been agreed. €10 million is not a cheap deal. If we're being honest, it's not a small amount of money when you think that Idrissa Gueye is 32 years old, and I think we were all under the impression that he'd be coming in for practically nothing. In fact, when we were first read about these rumours, it was originally a loan deal that was proposed. €5 million is obviously a much better deal for Everton, and maybe Everton and Frank Lampard and Kevin Thelwell have looked at the situation and decided, we're that desperate for cover in that area. We know Idrissa Gueye is experienced. He's been here before. He's been at the club before. He's been in the league before. And, we can trust that he's going to come in, and for that €5 million, we're going to get guaranteed performances out of him. There was a rumour last night stating that Chelsea had actually made a late move for Idrissa Gueye, but he'd already given his word to Everton that he would sign here. So finally, it seems like we have a breakthrough with Idrissa Gueye. Finally, after what feels like about 15 years worth of negotiations. Obviously, it hasn't been. Obviously, it's been about 3 weeks, but it feels like it's been about 15 years. Finally, Idrissa Gueye looks set to complete his return to Everton. It seems at the moment like we're playing a little bit of an announcement bingo. Everton have removed their pin tweet on Twitter, which usually means that they are preparing for a signing to be announced, potentially 2 signings being announced, as we said before. But whether or not this deal is announced today or whether or not it's announced tomorrow, we will wait and see. But one thing's for sure, and that is that Idrissa Gueye looks set to rejoin Everton, and looks like he will be in for Saturday's Merseyside derby as well, which is really, really, really important for me, because I think one thing we saw yesterday quite evidently in that game against Leeds, well, a couple of things. One of them was that players were quite evidently tiring towards the end of the game. The likes of Alex Iwobi, looked quite legless and, quite tired in the last 10-15 minutes of the game. And to be fair, I can't blame him, because the lad has ran his socks off non-stop for the last 4 or 5 games of football. So, the fact that he started to flag a little bit towards the end of yesterday's game wasn't surprising. And we've obviously got Onana in there. He's only just come into the football club, and is still quite inexperienced in this league, although he's done brilliantly since joining. You've got Tom Davies in there, who's only just coming back from an injury as well. So, at the end of the day, adding Garner to the side not only brings the quality that he brings as a player and his experience as a centre midfielder and his experience in that role, but also, of course, brings an extra option for Everton to be able to utilise in the midfield. And, whether that be an extra option off the bench or whether that be an extra option in the starting 11, for me, I think the sound of a midfield of Alex Iwobi, Idrissa Gueye and Amadou Onana is extremely, extremely exciting for me. You've got pace, you've got power, you've got physicality, you've got quality, you've got ability to move the ball, you've got ability to break the play up, you've got fearlessness, you've got all of it in a midfield. And finally, seemingly like we've got a midfield who can run around and work hard for 90 minutes, which we haven't had, especially not a full midfield that could do that. We haven't had for a long, long, long time. Now, I said when we were first linked with Idrissa Gueye that my biggest issue with the deal was that we needed to find the next Idrissa Gueye, because bringing a 32-year-old and hanging all of our hopes on him being as good, as he was before he left Everton Football Club 3 years ago is a risk. We've obviously then gone out and bought Amadou Onana, and we look set to sign James Garner. It's mad, isn't it, really? We've got Onana, James Garner, and Idrissa Gueye. We must just be going for a team that rhymes. Makes for some really good song opportunities, to be fair. But yeah, as I said, as soon as we brought in Onana, I think everybody was almost like, yeah, we'll get the deal done now, because he can come in. He brings that experience, he brings that level head, that cool head, that, quality, and he'll be able to help not only Onana, but everybody else around him. James Garner now obviously looks set to sign as well. He'll benefit massively from having Idrissa Gueye in that side next to him. So really, really exciting. When it will be announced, we will wait and see. As I said, I feel like we're playing a little bit of an announcement bingo at the moment. Will it be tonight? I'm sure we all hope so we can finally put an end to this saga and see Garner in an Everton shirt once again. I really, really do hope that Everton announce him by pretending to leak a photo of him standing outside Finch Farm in the same way as that he wasn't announced, but he was leaked when he originally signed for Everton, standing outside Finch Farm, getting his pictures taken. So I really, really hope that Everton recreate that image, because it would show that they are interactive with the fan base. But it looks like the Garner deal is finally going to happen. Having him in here before Saturday's Merseyside derby is massive, because, as I said, I think one thing that was noticeable yesterday was that we started to flag an awful lot towards the end of the game, and players looked quite visibly tired. That's worrying, considering we're going in against, a team that notoriously over the last 3-4 years have been very fit and, very capable of playing 3-4 games on the bounce. Whether or not that's because they've all got asthma and they all have inhalers, I'm not too sure, but it is what it is, and that seems to have been the situation. So having an extra head in there, especially someone of Garner's experience and quality, is very, very, very certainly something that will benefit Everton. Whether we'll see a midfield three of Garner, Onana and Iwobi on Saturday, we will wait and see. But I do think that's a midfield trio that we'll all be wanting to see very, very soon in Everton shirts, because it's very, very promising. However, we look set to be signing another centre midfielder as well. This time, Manchester United midfielder James Garner spent the last season on loan at Nottingham Forest. Had a really, really good season at Nottingham Forest. And actually, there's a lot of Nottingham Forest fans that are disappointed that he's coming to Everton. And actually, not just that, there's a lot of Manchester United fans that seem disappointed that he's leaving Manchester United on a permanent deal. They were hoping that he would only go on loan. Now, obviously, Everton have been linked with James Garner quite a fair bit over the last couple of weeks or so, but it's only really been paper talk and, rumours of talks taking place and trying to structure a deal. The Daily Mail did state yesterday that talks between Everton and Manchester United are progressing for James Garner, and then since then, that was just before the game against Leeds, and then since then, it all seemingly has happened, as I said, over the last 12 hours or so. Fabrizio Romano stating Everton are winning the race to sign James Garner, now feeling close to complete the agreement with Manchester United on a permanent deal. Being told Everton are pushing to get it done. 3 other clubs have bid, but Everton are favourites. That was earlier this morning. And then we had The Athletic saying that James Garner is closing in on a move to Everton in a deal that could rise to 15 million, including add-ons. However, there is still work to do to complete the deal. Fabrizio Romano then said a couple of hours later, full agreement between Everton and Manchester United for James Garner has been accepted, around 15 to 20 million. It will be clear later today. Discussions ongoing on personal terms. Garner has to decide as there are other clubs available. He also said Everton are confident of getting the deal over the line. And then within literally the last couple of hours or so, Fabrizio Romano, once again, Everton are set to sign James Garner and Idrissa Gueye. Here we go, confirmed. Contracts being exchanged with PSG. Garner will cost around 15 million with add-ons included, and Man United have a buy clause in the deal. He also said Garner has already completed his Everton medical and will sign a 5-year deal with Everton. And then Samuel Luckhurst, who works for the MEN, he's actually the chief Manchester United writer, so obviously somebody that knows what he's talking about, said that Everton had a £8 million bid accepted for Man United's James Garner. The fee could rise to 50 million. A sell-on clause has been inserted into the deal. So it seems like James Garner has also completed the medical at Everton, or certainly started his medical at Everton, and it seems like he could closely be following Idrissa Gueye, not only as a player with a very similar sounding name, in fact the same sounding name joining Everton, but also another centre midfielder as well. I actually really like James Garner. I think he brings something a little bit different to the other midfielders that we've got. Obviously, the likes of Idrissa Gueye, Amadou Onana, sort of very similar players that will constantly run, players that will put a tackle in, can get about the pitch, will intercept the play, and ultimately will bring that physicality and break-up play needed. James Garner a little bit different. He still does that. He's still incredibly tall. 1.82 metres, whatever that is in foot. I think that's over 6 foot. Obviously, as I said, on loan at Nottingham Forest last season in the Championship, and a massive, massive part of Nottingham Forest's success in the Championship, which ultimately obviously got them promoted. A player that they were certainly looking to sign on a permanent deal. Obviously, they've signed 42,000 other players, so that one didn't come to fruition, but he played 41 games in the Championship last season, 44 if you include the 3 playoff games, 4 goals, 8 assists for Forest. He's actually been at Forest for a couple of seasons, played 20 games with 4 goals prior to that. He's had a couple of loans, since his time at Manchester United, Watford being one as well, and he looks a really, really talented young lad. 21 years old, of course. He's from Birkenhead, so he's local. What team he supported as a football as a child, I'm not too sure, but he's certainly talented. Now, there's a lot being made about the fee at the moment, and it is a lot of money. 15 to 20 million pound for a lad who ultimately is unproven in this division is an awful lot of money, and I understand where the where the concern regarding that is coming from. However, it won't be 15-20 million pounds up front. I can almost guarantee that, because there's been a lot of reports suggesting that Everton will only pay around £5 million for him up front, and the rest of it will, of course, be in add-ons, and those add-ons may be that, he scores 10 goals this season, or we finish in the top 7, or whatever they may be. I'm sure those add-ons will be structured to a point where if we have to end up paying them, it's because James Garner has been absolutely fantastic for Everton, and Everton have had a really, really strong season, which obviously is beneficial anyway, and that's all we want. So if James Garner's add-ons mean that it rises to £20 million if he scores 10 goals and Everton finish in the top 8, then sound, take it, pay the £20 million and guarantee us that, because that's a massive improvement, obviously, on what last season was. But as I said, that's obviously just me sort of toying around with what the add-ons will be. That hasn't been confirmed that those are the add-ons whatsoever. We don't know what they are, but I think he's a talented lad. Now the big question around James Garner is, I suppose, the big question around Morgan Gibbs-White, and the big question around a lot of players. Brennan Johnson, Jed Spence, who of course played for Nottingham Forest. Brennan Johnson still playing for Nottingham Forest. And that question is, okay, they were very good in the Championship, and they were clear standout players in the Championship, which is why Nottingham Forest ended up being promoted. But can they, and have they got the talent to be able to transfer that into the Premier League? The jump from Championship football into Premier League football is absolutely massive, and have these players in this, obviously, scenario, James Garner, got the ability to do that in the Premier League? Now, one thing I'm really impressed with from James Garner is his size and his ability to break the play up. Now, obviously, I haven't watched an awful lot of him. I've watched him, in the youth sides at Man United, when I've watched Everton play Man United, and he's looked impressive. And I watched him a couple of times at Forest last season. But when I did watch him, he seems to break the play up well. He seems to have a good knowledge of the game as well, a good knowledge of where the ball is going to be and when it's going to be there and where he needs to be to intercept it. He's big, so he can make long strides. He almost seems like quite a similar player to Onana in that sense, in terms of his size and his ability to break the play up, but a little bit different as well. He can score goals, he can create chances. I believe he takes set pieces as well. So I actually think to have him coming in as an option, because he will be an option, because ultimately people are saying, well, why are we spending that much money on somebody that's just going to sit on the bench? We can't sit here and say that, and then we can't sit here last night and say, oh, Frank needs to make a sub, but he can't change it because we've got nothing on the bench. And then 24 hours later say, why are we spending 15 million quid on a fella that is going to sit on the bench? He mightn't sit on the bench. Ultimately, James Garner's coming to Everton because he thinks, I'm not going to get an opportunity at Manchester United, so I'm going to go here, and hopefully I'll be given more of an opportunity. But I think it's important that he knows, and at Everton in a position to say, well, if you fight for your place and you earn your place and you play well enough, you will get your place. However, you're not guaranteed it, because at the moment, Idrissa Gueye at the moment, Alex Iwobi is the number one name on the team sheet out of everybody, because he's been excellent, and I really want to see Alex Iwobi continue in that midfield role. I don't want, because we've signed Idrissa Gueye and James Garner, I don't all of a sudden want Alex Iwobi to be moved back onto the wing, because we've now got two other midfielders. Alex Iwobi hasn't just been put there and done a job. Alex Iwobi has really cemented himself as a really good midfielder, so therefore he should stay there. Taking him out of that position would be absolute suicidal from Frank Lampard. He should stay there. And as I said, Onana's been very good as well. And you've got Garner coming in as well. It's now up to James Garner to fight with Garner, Gueye and Onana and Iwobi for those places. And he offers us a different option. One week we might bring James Garner off the bench with 10 or 15 minutes to go, and he might bulldoze his way through and create an opportunity for us. One week we might bring Onana off the bench to do the same. One week we might start with Onana and James Garner to have that, physicality and that height in the midfield. He's another option, and he's a good option to have. Again, he's a risk, because we don't know whether or not he's going to be able to reach the heights that he did last season in the Premier League, because it's a very different scenario. But he's certainly talented, and I think I said this when we sign Connor Cody, and I say it when we sign anybody. You can always it's never a full judgment, but you can gain a sort of judgment on a player by looking at what the fans of the team he currently plays for are saying when they're talking about him moving to a different club. Some fans may say about a certain player, oh no, he's absolutely shite, we've had their pants down there, and that's when you know, okay, he's not massively rated. Everything I've read, Nottingham Forest fans seem a little bit upset that he's going to Everton. Obviously, I think they're aware that they're spending silly money on other players. But more, I think, importantly and noticeably for me, Manchester United fans seem a little bit upset with this deal. Manchester United fans seem a little bit underwhelmed at the fact that James Garner is potentially leaving on a permanent deal as opposed to a loan deal. They seem a little bit upset at the fact that James Garner, you know, okay, there's a couple of rumours floating around at the moment that there's a buyback clause on him, but again, we don't know whether that is just being completely misinterpreted by Fabrizio Romano, because the MEN, Manchester Evening News, is stating that it's a sell-on clause rather than a buyback clause. So again, Man United fans seem a little bit upset that the club are allowing this lad to go, and, you know, okay, in due course, that might change. They might say in 2 years, well, we made a little bit of money on him because he wasn't able to do it in the Premier League. Or they might be sitting here saying, what a player Everton have got on their hands there. They've managed to, you know, take him off us, and he's really, really flourished. Ultimately, it's down to Garner to prove that he's good enough to play in the Premier League. But if he can, as I said, if he can hit those heights he did in the Championship, then we've got some player on our hands, because I think he's a really, really talented player. Still extremely young as well, 21 years old. And you're mixing that youth of James Garner and Onana with that experience of Idrissa Gueye. And I'm not going to lie, I'm confusing myself here because all of these names rhyme. 2 of them have got the same name and my head's up my arse. But you're mixing that youth with that experience, and they'll be able to learn. The both of them will be able to learn, as well as Iwobi, because it's a new role for him, an awful lot from Idrissa Gueye coming in and bringing that experience. And yeah, as I said, I'm relatively happy with this. It's a risk, of course it is, but I think he's the profile of player we should be going for. A young, hungry player who's prepared to prove himself, who's very clearly got talent and very clearly got quality. Now, obviously, there's a question as to should we be spending that much money on another centre midfielder when we still need another winger and when we still need another attacker. That's a different question. There's been rumours that Everton are interested in other forward players, who we'll mention in a second. However, again, you know, that's a completely different question. I suppose the hope is that Everton are able to go out and buy another attacker, able to go out and buy another winger alongside Idrissa Gueye and James Garner. Whether that might mean we have to sell a couple of players, I don't know, i.e. try and shift an Andre Gomez, try and shift Alan, try and shift a couple of these players that, you know, have got absolutely no future at Everton Football Club. You can, you know, maybe make a little bit of money on, but that is going to be difficult over the next 24 hours because these players have very clearly got no interest in them. So, yeah, as I said, I'm quite happy with this deal. I think it's an interesting one, certainly, and I think James Garner's a player that, if he can, as I said, reach those heights of last season in the Premier League, he'll be a top talent. But that is a big if at the moment, because the jump up from the Championship to the Premier League is massive, as we all know. And there's been a lot of players that have been massively successful in the Championship, and then when coming into the Premier League have not been able to do it because they haven't been able to deal with that jump. Let's hope that if he does sign, James Garner isn't one of them. Obviously, these deals haven't been completed yet, even the Garner deal, although, you know, there's a couple of reports saying it has been done and we're just pending an announcement. I don't believe any deal is done until Everton's social media are talking about it and he's there with the Everton shirt in his hand for us all to see. Until then, you know, I'm always fearful because I'm a pessimist, and that's what being an Evertonian is, isn't it, really? However, the Garner Gueye deal seems like it's pretty much done and we're awaiting an announcement, and I actually do think we will get an announcement probably tonight. And the James Garner deal certainly seems like it's closing in. Whether or not that is announced tonight or tomorrow, we don't know. But one thing is for certain is it won't be announced past tomorrow, because tomorrow's deadline day. We will have loads of content on the channel tomorrow, by the way. We're going to do the review to the Leeds game, and then we're going to have live streams constantly as things pop up throughout the day. We'll probably do one sort of big one talking about all the rumours, and then as various bits of information pop up, we'll be sitting down talking about them, as well as obviously any confirmed signings that we make. But it seems at the moment that Idrissa Gueye and James Garner are potentially set to complete their deals for Everton. As I said, if you believe Fabrizio Romano, who a lot of people do, because he is he's the top dog when it comes to these things, both players are set to sign their contracts with Everton Football Club and join Frank Lampard's side, which obviously significantly improves our midfield and gives us other options, because, as I said, my biggest criticism of yesterday was that we had nobody to come on and change the game, and we had nobody to come on and, provide some fresh legs and give a couple of the other players, your Iwobi's, Gray, Gordon, etc., a little bit of a rest, whereas we're now bringing in at least a couple of midfielders to be able to do that. Contract-wise, for James Garner, he will sign a 5-year deal, according to Fabrizio Romano. And in terms of Idrissa Gueye, I believe, according to David Ornstein, that will be a 2-year deal with an option for a third. So, yeah, decent contract length, big contract for James Garner. Really, really big contract. But for somebody at 25 years old, I'm not particularly surprised that that contract length has been discussed. Anyway, let's move on before we jump into the live comments to a current Everton player who has been the conversation of much speculation. That rhymed as well. Bloody hell, we're doing loads of rhymes today, aren't we? By the way, 77 people watching live. If you are watching and you are enjoying, please hit that like button. It literally only takes a second. It means a massive, massive amount to me. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. That would be absolutely fantastic. And yeah, if you're watching as a YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below. But a player who has been the conversation of a lot of transfer speculation over the last couple of weeks or so, Anthony Gordon. It looked at one point last week that he was almost destined to move to Chelsea, really, with some of the bids that were being spoken about, some of the money that was being spoken about, and some of the rumours regarding his personal preference. However, obviously, we've got 24 hours, just a little bit more than 24 hours to go before the transfer window slams shut, as people like to say. And it seems at the moment like Anthony Gordon will be going absolutely nowhere and will remain an Everton player after this transfer window has closed. David Ornstein reported earlier today, and David Ornstein of The Athletic, in case you don't know who David Ornstein is, he reported earlier today, Chelsea value Anthony Gordon no higher than £40 million, so have no interest in going beyond that. We also read not so long ago, a couple of hours ago, that because of that valuation and having no interest in going beyond that, it seems like any deal for Anthony Gordon to join Chelsea is extremely unlikely to happen now, because they do not deem the player worth more than £40 million, which obviously was a bid that they already previously had rejected. So it seems like, as of now, and as I said, I say seems because this is A, Everton, and this is B, football, and football clubs and billionaires and owners of clubs and managers, etc., have said many a things in the past and then gone against their word in many a situation. So I'm confident Anthony Gordon will still be an Everton player come the end of this transfer window, but I'm not going to sit here and say he 100% will, because that would be absolutely ridiculous of me to say. However, as I said, The Athletic, really, really reliable source, David Ornstein, obviously one of the top reporters there, seems fairly adamant that they will not be will not be paying any more than £40 million, which of course would mean that they will not be signing Anthony Gordon. I actually think Everton would be stupid to sell Anthony Gordon now. I really, really do. Now, listen, I said sat here last week on the channel. If you were with us, if you joined us, you will have seen it. But I sat here last week and said, for me, if Everton had offered anywhere near sort of 55, 60 million pounds, I'd sell Anthony Gordon, because I didn't believe he was worth that. I still don't really think he is worth that, and I think that was money that we could have reinvested in other areas. We're not where we were last week. We are 24 hours away from this transfer window slamming shut, and even if Everton were offered £70 million for Anthony Gordon now, what are we going to do with that £70 million? We've got 24 hours. Anybody that we had on our list originally to replace Anthony Gordon or to come in to strengthen the teams that they play for will want an extra 15-20% on top of their transfer fee, because of the fact that A, it's so close to the transfer window, and B, it's more than likely that those players are important to their club as well, so they'll have to then find a replacement for them with such little time to go, so that's unlikely to happen. And it would end up being Everton spending a ridiculous amount of money on somebody we didn't really want, who isn't really worth, or in fact, who isn't anywhere near worth the money that we spend on them. So Frank Lampard actually said something really, really interesting in his press conference, I think yesterday, either before the game or after the game. Can't remember when it was. But he actually said something really interesting. He said the window for Anthony Gordon to leave Everton has passed now, which is a little bit interesting because Frank Lampard was quite clear. He said something along those lines, don't quote me word for word, but Frank Lampard was quite clear that Anthony Gordon wasn't leaving Everton anyway. But he said something along the lines of that window is passed now, which would suggest that Everton ultimately gave Chelsea a deadline, gave Chelsea a date and said, if you haven't bid what we want by this point, then he isn't going nowhere. And Chelsea haven't bid what Everton wants, so in that sense, it seems quite obvious that he won't be going anywhere, which I think is right. I think is right because, as I said, with 24 hours to go before the end of a transfer window, for Everton to sell a player who is important to the team and ultimately is improving and has been fantastic over the last couple of games and obviously scored a couple of goals over the last couple of games. It seems like since this speculation has started, Anthony Gordon has really sort of, fired onwards and, ultimately, kicked himself in the backside a little bit. He scored 2 really, really good goals. He's worked hard. He's battled. He's put himself about. He's fought. He's been excellent. He's been absolutely excellent. Very, very much faultless over the last sort of couple of games of football, and maybe that was because he was wanting to make an impression on Chelsea, or maybe that was just because he had a fire in his belly because of everything that's been going on. I also think his celebration of putting his fingers in the ears is quite telling as well, almost as if to say, I'm not listening to any transfer speculation, I'm not listening to any talk, I just want to play me football, whether that's here or elsewhere. And as I said, listen, ultimately none of us really know what's going on inside Anthony Gordon's head. None of us know the conversations that he's had with Frank Lampard or the club or what he actually really wants. However, I get the vibe of that he maybe would have wanted that move to Chelsea. He maybe wouldn't have minded it. He maybe would have liked to have gone there and played Champions League football and upped his, possibility of playing in the World Cup. However, he wasn't going to force it, and he wasn't particularly heartbroken if he wouldn't have got it. He'll just get his head down, he'll carry on working, and what will be will be. And I think the message now from Frank Lampard, even if a bid does come in over the next 24 hours, I think the message should be reject it, even if it is 60, 70 million, because at the end of the day, we can sit here all we like and say, yeah, but Cam, he's not worth that, and we need to take that money because that could improve the squad. We are not bringing in anybody over the next 24 hours that will be of the same calibre of player we would have brought in 2 weeks ago had we have sold Anthony Gordon or last week. We're just not doing it. So it's no good having 60, 70 million quid if it can only sit in the bank until January. What the message should be is we're not selling Anthony Gordon because A, it's far too late into the window and we wouldn't be able to replace him, and B, he's had a really good couple of games and we want him to stay and we want to build a team around him. But the message to Anthony should be, if you want to go, lad, and if you don't want to be here, then the way to do it is to get your head down, is to continue the form that you're on in terms of your work rate, your hard work, your fire, your passion, your desire. Continue your goal scoring form, and they'll come back knocking in January. They will 100% come back knocking in January, or they'll come back knocking next summer without a shadow of a doubt. So if you want the move, get your head down, continue, work hard and fight for it, or accept that it hasn't happened. And, you're just going to work hard for Everton. Either way, you've got to get your head down and you've got to work hard, because ultimately that's what we need you to do. And sitting there and sulking, isn't going to get you anywhere ultimately. And yeah, as I said, for me, I think it's far too late into the transfer window now, even if we did get that bid that we wanted, which I don't think we will. I know football is very mind games, and I know Chelsea, it wouldn't be the biggest surprise in the world if Chelsea turned around and said, oh no, we're not going to pay 40 million quid for him, and then turn around and bid 70 tomorrow. That wouldn't be the biggest surprise, considering they've just paid about 300 billion for Wesley Fofana. But even if they bid 70 for now, I'd say no, because A, we can't replace him, it's too late, and B, he's been in good form, and we can't afford to lose that, because we'd have lost the last 2 games without Anthony Gordon. It's as simple as that. Just found out a little bit more information from Ben Islington, who has tweeted, Idrissa Gueye watched all of Everton's games last season and was still in contact with the club, a massive supporter, and was hoping they would avoid relegation. He always hoped he would go back to Goodison Park one day as a player. So there you go. words of positivity from Garner there, as you can see. But no, on Anthony Gordon, as I said, for me, I think Everton would be absolutely ridiculous to sell Anthony Gordon at this point in the transfer window. And I actually think if we were to sell him, we would know who has sold him, in the sense of that it would be the owner or the chairman. It's as simple as that, because Frank Lampard's interviews recently have been very, very, very clear in the sense that he doesn't want Anthony Gordon to leave this football club, and that he very, very much is building a team around Anthony Gordon and building a side around his quality, and a massive fan of him, saying things like, Anthony's our player and I think he'll be our player for a long time, saying things like, I don't have to worry about Anthony in the last couple of days of the window, saying things like, that window was passed for him to leave the football club. That's Frank Lampard effectively saying, don't you dare sell this lad. And as I said, for me, 70 million quid last week, 60 million quid last week, 50 million quid last week. Yeah, you can, you assess it. If that bid's there on the table, you look at it, you think, okay, we've got a week here to vastly improve our team. And at that point, Anthony Gordon hadn't just scored, 2 goals in consecutive games and had 2 really, really good performances. Now, he's just scored 2 in 2 really good performances, and we haven't got the time to replace him. So for me, it's a simple no. It's a simple no for me. Which is positive. Anthony Gordon staying at Everton Football Club is positive. Listen, we can all sit here and fantasize about, well, we should have sold him this, we should have sold him that. At the end of the day, Chelsea very clearly do not value Anthony Gordon at more than £40 million, as stated by some really reputable sources. So if you believe that, then surely we all believe that Chelsea haven't bid more than £40 million for Anthony Gordon, because why would they bid more than what they value him at? So all of this talk of a £60, £70 million bid is nonsense, because it hasn't come in. Therefore, meaning that Everton have rejected the bid that was on the table that they deemed not enough, and any other talk about any other bid hasn't come in. And ultimately, Anthony Gordon remains an Everton player, and I think that's positive, because I think he's had a really good couple of games. He can build off that, he can improve off that, and as I said, if he does want to move and he is thinking about going to the World Cup, then look, he's got more of a chance of going to the World Cup being at Everton and performing than he will be being at Chelsea. Okay, there's more eyes on Chelsea and there's more attention on Chelsea, but he's probably not going to get in that Chelsea team. Certainly not week in, week out, consistently. Look at Richarlison. He's not getting in that Tottenham team, and he's absolutely fantastic. He's coming off the bench with 10-15 minutes to go, and his World Cup place is in massive jeopardy now, because he was Brazil's number 9 before he left Everton Football Club. Now he isn't, because Gabriel Jesus is starting and scoring every week, so he'll take that place. So Anthony Gordon, I think, has got more of a chance of going to the World Cup if he stays at Everton. He continues his form, he continues working hard, fighting, battling, scoring goals, than he would do at Chelsea, because he's struggled to get in that team where he knows he's in this Everton team week in, week out. So there you go. It looks like Anthony Gordon will remain an Everton player. Up to now, as I said, that isn't absolutely confirmed, because A, this is Everton, and B, this is football, and anything can change over the next 24 hours. But as I said, for me, I think Everton would be absolutely stupid to sell Anthony Gordon at this point in the transfer window. Anyway, let's get into some of the live comments before we move on to talking about the last couple of players we're going to talk about today. If you are enjoying, by the way, please hit that like button. It does only take a second. 97 people watching. If you could get the likes up, that would be absolutely unbelievable. That would mean a massive, 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 massive amount to me. I hope so, says Gang 1. I assume that's about the Garner and Garner deals. Philip says Garner is a class act, as in James Garner. If we get both, that's awesome. Don't know much about the United lad, says Stephen. Good player. Aaron says I want Diaz from Blackburn, but we'll get Barkley instead. I did say a few weeks ago, don't be surprised if Ross Barkley's an Everton player by the end of the window, and my Evertonian in me is still hanging on to the fact that could happen. Just because of the fact that he will be basically begging for a move back to Everton now. But hopefully Everton have learnt lessons from the past, and hopefully Everton don't go anywhere near that. Because I just don't think that will benefit anybody. In terms of Diaz, I think that's probably a little bit unlikely to happen now as well, to be honest with you. Again, it may do, but I think it's unlikely. Easy get 3 or 4 seasons out of Idrissa Gueye, says Stephen. Yes, 2-year deal with a year add-on. Golden deal a no-go, says Eugene. Stephen says need to get a few out now. Gomez got to go, says JT. I agree. Barkley running past Rondon, says Charlie. Hernandez says I hope we register these players properly before the weekend. The registering thing was a nonsense. How the Premier League don't class a weekend as a working day is a nonsense considering Premier League football is played on a fucking weekend. They're an absolute shambles of an organisation. They're an embarrassment of an organisation. The local chippy by ours, which has had about 800 owners over the last 5 years, is ran better than the Premier League, without a shadow of a doubt. Garner and Gueye could be the difference in the derby and beyond. Yeah, potentially. We didn't make a single sub, says Hernandez. We didn't. Garner and Mope stayed in Saturday, says Stephen. Potentially. Amanda says, good, that Gordon is staying. James Garner is a good deal too. What is happening with Kudus? Well, we'll talk about him in a second. And Garner not getting over losing him first time around. Well, you know what? It looks like he will be back. Anyway, Everton have been linked with a couple of other players over the last 24 hours or so. According to the Daily Mail, which this was earlier today, Everton have approached Villarreal for winger Samuel Chukwueze on a loan deal with an obligation to buy next summer. The fee Everton would be obligated to pay Villarreal for Chukwueze next summer would be between 34.3 and 42.9 million pounds. Mundo Deportivo, who are a Spanish publication, they also tweeted that Samuel Chukwueze is very close to joining Everton. The 23-year-old would join on a loan for the season with a mandatory purchase next summer for €45 million. So it seems like a number of sources are quite adamant that that Chukwueze is being linked with Everton, and that Chukwueze is wanting to join Everton. Now, I think the big thing with this is the fee. €45 million is a ridiculous amount of money. Now, this lad is a really, really, really talented footballer, and ultimately somebody that I think would massively, massively improve Everton. He's a winger, of course, which would solve the sort of needing another attacker problem. Obviously he's quite raw. He's 23 years old, Nigerian. He's had 3 appearances so far this season, no goals with 1 assist, which actually isn't too bad given 3 games. And obviously he's played for Villarreal for quite some time now. 2 games in the Conference League qualifiers this season as well. 1 goal, 1 assist in 2 games. Again, good stats. Last season, not great. 27 games, 3 goals, 3 assists. But certainly a talented lad, quick, can beat a man, can move the ball well. And as I said, ultimately is very, very highly rated and still very young with a lot of room to improve. 45 million quid, a lot of money. And I think had this been an option to buy for that amount, I think this deal would be a lot more likely to go ahead. An obligation to buy for a lad that is still very young, is still quite raw, and obviously has had no experience in this country and no experience playing in the Premier League, and obviously has no guarantee that he's going to be able to, play in the Premier League and be a success. It's a lot of money. It's an absolute lot of money for him, and yeah, I'm not too sure this one will go over the line, to be honest. I don't think Everton have got the finances at the moment to be able to get this one over the line. Now, do we need another forward? Yes, and it's good that Everton are engaging in these conversations for other forwards, but I just have a feeling that if this was to go over the line, I think that fee would have to be dropped significantly, or it would have to be an option to buy, or the deal would have to be structured in a very, very clever way for us to be able to avoid the sort of the financial implications. Whamey says we paid 30 for Onana for this proven. Yeah, but we paid it in installments in structured way. However, this one would be structured. I don't really know, but I just get a feeling. And look, again, this is football, and James Garner went from just being linked with Everton last night to ultimately, looking like he's going to sign for the football club. And over the next 24 hours, anything can happen, and Chukwueze could go from a player who's linked to a player who's stood at Finch Farm holding the shirt by tomorrow afternoon. But I just feel like if this one was to go through, it would be it would take a little bit of a while. I think we might have left this one a little bit too late into the window, because I don't think Villarreal will want to budge much with that figure, because he is a really good player. He would be a great signing. I think he's one for the future, and I think he's one that we would definitely get our money's worth. But can we get this done over 24 hours? I'm not too sure. It's good, as I said, that Everton are looking for wingers and wide players and attackers, because that's what we need. Whether or not this one will happen, I don't know. But he is a talented player, and if we signed him, I would be absolutely over the moon. Because again, he's another option. We talk about midfield options and not having anybody to come on in the midfield yesterday. Look at the wide options. Gueye was absolutely blown out of his arse last night towards the end of the game. Gordon looked really tired. McNeil looked tired because they'd all worked hard, and we had nobody that could come on and replace them. And for as much as Garner and Gueye, James Garner and Idrissa Gueye improved the team, they don't offer us any wide option. So I do think we need another winger. I would be absolutely over the moon with Chukwueze. Whether or not it happens or is another question. I've just got a feeling that fee is a little bit too high, and I'm not too sure Everton will pay it. Another player who seemingly wants to join Everton, which is a bit of a mad scenario, a bit of a mad situation, is attacking midfielder Mohammed Kudus from Ajax. He's Ghanaian, 22 years old, and the latest on him, according to Mike Verage, who is a Ajax reporter, he has stated that Mohammed Kudus is refusing to train with Ajax and wants to leave to join Everton. That was earlier on this afternoon. He also reported that Mohammed Kudus has agreed personal terms with Everton, but Ajax are not allowing him to leave. Kudus is now trying to force a move to Everton by not turning up to training. Now, this is a really, really interesting one, because this is clearly a player who wants to move for game time. He wants to sign for Everton Football Club because he doesn't believe he's getting enough game time at Ajax. Ajax obviously have just lost Anthony to Manchester United, or will be losing Anthony to Manchester United over the coming days. And they seem quite adamant that they don't want to allow him to leave. They seem quite adamant that they don't want to allow Kudus, that they don't want to allow Kudus to leave, and Kudus seems quite adamant that he wants to leave and he wants to join Everton. As we just read, personal terms seem to have been agreed, and I believe there was actually a deal agreed with Ajax last week for the signing of him. However, they've pulled the plug on it, or certainly temporarily pulled the plug on it, because of the situation with Anthony, and I think they're looking at shipping up a couple of other players as well. Again, this one is very much on a shoestring, isn't it? Whether or not it will happen, I think this one is much more realistic than Chukwueze, because this one is very much just Ajax saying yes away from being done. Personal terms won't be an issue. Medical won't be an issue. The Netherlands isn't very far away, so it's not like he's got a long way to travel. And I believe a fee has reportedly already been agreed with the club, so it's not like we'll have to sit there and agree a fee. However, it seems like Ajax are standing quite strong on their stance on this. They had a very similar situation with Anthony, who they didn't want to let go, and who basically forced the move to Manchester United, and they ended up getting a ridiculous fee for him. Let's be honest, it's an absolutely astronomical fee for him. He's not worth anywhere near that much money. But whether or not they stay strong with Kudus and say, no, you're not going, and also whether or not they say, listen, we've just lost an attacking player, we've lost a wide player, we've lost a player that plays, in our sort of front three. Although you mightn't have been getting much game time before that, and you mightn't be happy with that, you'll get a lot more now, because there's an open door, there's an open opportunity there for somebody to step in and fill that space that Anthony has ultimately left. I know he doesn't play in exactly the same position, but there's a space there for that to be filled. Again, I think this one is sort of on a balance scale really at the moment as to whether or not it will happen. One or two things is going to happen here. Ajax are either going to stay strong and say, no, you're contracted to us, and even though you don't want to be here, and even though you don't want to train or play, and you want to force a move, you're not. Or they'll go, if you don't want to be here, then whatever, move on, and he will become an Everton player over the next 24 hours or so. Seen a couple of Blues talking about the whole refusing to train situation, and not being happy with that, and being a little bit upset. And is this the mentality we want to bring in? Is this the type of play we want to bring in? On that, I think you could look at it two ways. One of which is you could look at it in the sense of that this is a player who wants to play for Everton and who is seemingly desperate to play for Everton, and therefore will come in and will give absolutely everything to get his opportunity. Does this mean that in a couple of years, if he's out the team because he's not performing or because we're trying something new, he'll kick off and do the same as what he's doing at Ajax? Maybe. But ultimately, if he comes in and he's absolutely fantastic and he's a massive success, then he'll be in the team, so that won't matter. It concerns me a little bit for his future in terms of, as I said, if it doesn't go quite well at Everton, but I'm not too concerned because he clearly just wants to play games of footy. He clearly just wants his opportunity, and he's more likely to get that at Everton than he is at Ajax. So again, as I said, this one for me is very much just hanging on a thread at the moment as to whether or not it will happen. I can't call it. I really can't call it because ultimately, I think it's either Ajax are going to stay strong with this and, not allow him to leave, or they're just going to say, do you know what, you can go. Ned says in the comments, thoughts on Kieran Dowell. I don't know whether I want to explain that comment because I don't really want to sound too nasty, or I don't want to sound unnecessarily nasty, but that was very, very mad last night. That was very mad. And the last player we're going to talk about is João Pedro. According to the Daily Mail, Everton have revived their interest in João Pedro. Now, this is a player who really sparks my interest, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I would love Everton to go out and sign João Pedro. I think he's so talented. I think he done really well in the Premier League last season with Watford. I think he's looked okay so far with Watford in the Championship. And I think this would be almost similar to the Richarlison situation, not only because he's coming from Watford, but I think he's got that similar sort of style, similar sort of way of playing about him, and ultimately he's a wide attacker that can score goals, that can play across the three, and that would very certainly improve Everton Football Club. Again, at the moment it's just incest, but that could all change over 24 hours. These things change like that, so we'll wait and see on that one. But there you go. That is all we're going to talk about today, because I believe that is all of the players that we're being linked with. If I've missed somebody, let me know and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Amanda says Kudus wants to play for us and we need players like that. Absolutely. Semi says Cam top man. We need to get a couple of more deals over the line. I agree. I'm nicely tan now, apparently, says Wormy is right. And we need the two more, at least attackers. Our lack of subs demonstrated last night. Yeah, fair play. Listen, I'm going to jump because my newborn nephew, who was born yesterday, has just arrived at my house, so I'm going to go and see him. But anyway, if you have enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button. Big thank you to everybody for watching live. Really do appreciate it. If you're watching as a YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below and we'll get involved with as many of them. Let us know your thoughts on everybody we've spoken about. Are you happy with the deals? Do you want us to sign Kudus? Are you a bit put off with his attitude? Are you happy with the Chukwueze deal, or do you think it's a bit much? And how are you feeling about Garner and Gana signing for Everton? But a big thank you all for watching. Maybe says congrats, cheers mate. If you have enjoyed this team, please do hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new as well. We'll be back tomorrow, all over tomorrow by the way. We've got the review to the Leeds game, and then we've got every bit of transfer news that pops up we'll speak about. And of course, if we do get an official announcement of either Idrissa Gueye or James Garner, we'll be talking about that later today as well, and when that happens. But big thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you later.